When it comes to One Piece, one of the reasons fans connect so deeply with the characters is because every single member carries emotional scars from their past. But before we begin, this ranking is completely based on opinion. There's no official answer for which backstory is the saddest, because every Straw Hat suffered in different ways. Some experienced loneliness, some lost their families, and others spent years believing they didn't deserve to live. So this list is simply one perspective based on emotional impact, trauma, and how heartbreaking their stories felt. Starting from the least tragic and moving toward the most devastating, here's my ranking of the Straw Hats' backstories. At number 10 is Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy's childhood was far from normal. He grew up in dangerous environments, was constantly thrown into survival situations by Monkey D. Garp, and rarely experienced a peaceful life. But despite all of that, Luffy was never truly alone. He had Shanks, eventually Portgas D. Ace, and Sabo by his side. The emotional core of Luffy's childhood wasn't tragedy, it was freedom, adventure, and brotherhood. Compared to the rest of the crew, Luffy's past had pain, but it also had happiness. At number 9 is Roronoa Zoro. Zoro's story is quieter compared to the others, but still incredibly sad. As a child, he trained endlessly to become the world's strongest swordsman. The only person who could consistently defeat him was Kuina. Over time, the two developed a strong bond and promised that one of them would someday become the greatest swordsman in the world. But the very next day, Kuina suddenly died in an accident. For Zoro, it wasn't just the loss of a rival. It was the loss of the one person who truly understood his dream. From then on, Zoro carried both his own ambition and Kuina's dream together, refusing to lose because her memory became part of his purpose. At number 8 is Usopp. Usopp's story is built around loneliness. His father, Yasopp, left to become a pirate while Usopp was still young. Soon after, his mother became seriously ill. Every day, Usopp would run through the village, shouting that pirates were coming. To most people, it looked like a childish lie, but in reality, it was hope. He desperately wanted his father to return home. He wanted to believe that one day a ship would finally appear for him. Eventually, his mother passed away, leaving him alone. That loneliness shaped Usopp into someone who hides fear behind jokes and lies. Deep down, Usopp always wanted connection and reassurance, which is what makes his story more heartbreaking the more you think about it. At number 7 is Franky. Franky was abandoned by his pirate parents when he was still a child. Luckily, he was taken in by Tom, the legendary shipwright who built the Oro Jackson. Tom became the father figure Franky never had. But Franky loved building dangerous battleships, and eventually those same ships were used by the government to frame Tom. When Tom was arrested, Franky blamed himself completely. In desperation, he tried to stop the sea train carrying Tom away and was nearly killed in the process. Using scraps of metal, Franky rebuilt his own broken body into a cyborg just to survive. Behind Franky's loud personality is someone who spent years carrying guilt and believing his creations only brought pain. At number 6 is Jinbei. Jinbei's sadness comes from constantly witnessing hatred between humans and fishmen. He lived through discrimination, violence, and conflict for most of his life. He watched incredible people like Fisher Tiger and Queen Otohime dedicate themselves to peace, only for tragedy to take them away. Jinbei's story feels heavy because it reflects real-world prejudice and cycles of hatred. He spent years carrying the burden of loss while trying to protect the future of Fishman Island. At number 5 is Tony Chopper. Chopper's childhood was heartbreaking from the very beginning. He was born with a blue nose, causing the other reindeer to reject him. After eating a devil fruit, humans feared him too. To both sides, he looked like a monster. Imagine being hated no matter where you go. The only person who truly accepted him was Dr. Hiraluk. Hiraluk didn't just save Chopper, he gave him a reason to smile and believe he deserved love. But when Hiraluk became sick, Chopper desperately searched for a cure. He misunderstood what he was told and unknowingly brought back a poisonous mushroom instead. He genuinely believed he was saving the person he loved most. That misunderstanding makes the story even more painful because Chopper's kindness unintentionally caused more suffering. At number 4 is Nami. Nami finally found happiness after being adopted by Belle-Mère alongside Nojiko. Even though they were poor, they were a real family. Then Arlong arrived and destroyed everything. Belle-Mère was killed right in front of Nami. And instead of escaping, Nami was forced to work for the man who ruined her life. For years, she stole money and drew maps for Arlong because she believed she could buy her village's freedom. She carried the burden alone while pretending to betray everyone around her. The most heartbreaking part is that Nami lost her childhood completely. She spent years trapped in fear, manipulation, and false hope. At number 3 is Sanji. Sanji's pain began with his own family. Unlike his genetically enhanced siblings, Sanji showed normal human emotions, and because of that, his father considered him a failure. He was mocked, beaten, humiliated, and treated as if he didn't belong in the family at all. His brothers constantly abused him while his father locked him away and erased him from the family's image. The only person who showed him kindness was his mother. After escaping, Sanji eventually ended up stranded with Zeph on a massive rock surrounded by the ocean. They nearly starved to death. When Sanji later discovered that Zeph gave him all the food and sacrificed his own leg to save him, it completely changed his life. Sanji's story hurts because the people who were supposed to love him treated him like he was worthless. At number 2 is Brook. Brook's backstory is one of the loneliest stories in all of anime. He watched every member of the Rumbar Pirates die one after another from poison. Even as they were dying, they played one final song together so their last moments wouldn't be filled with fear. Then Brook died too. But because of his devil fruit power, he came back to life. By the time he returned to his body, everyone else was already gone. For decades, Brook drifted alone through darkness on an abandoned ship surrounded by the remains of his dead friends. No conversations, no family, no hope, just silence. The only thing keeping him alive mentally was the promise he made to Laboon that one day they would meet again. And finally, at number 1 is Nico Robin. Robin's backstory combines almost every form of tragedy imaginable. She was hated as a child simply because of her devil fruit powers. Other children feared her, adults treated her like a monster, and she grew up without affection. The only place where Robin truly belonged was Ohara, where scholars secretly researched the lost history of the world. But the world government viewed that knowledge as dangerous. So they launched the Buster Call on Ohara and destroyed the entire island. Robin lost her mother. She lost her home. She lost everyone who ever cared about her. And that was only the beginning. After escaping Ohara, Robin spent the next 20 years being hunted by the entire world. Every group she joined eventually betrayed her out of fear or greed because the government labeled her a dangerous criminal while she was still just a little girl. She stopped believing she deserved happiness. She stopped believing anyone would ever truly protect her. That's why her moment with the Straw Hats became so powerful. For the first time in her life, people chose to save her, not because they needed her, but because they genuinely loved her. And that's what makes the Straw Hats unforgettable. They aren't just pirates chasing dreams. They're broken people who finally found a family that accepted them. And that's my ranking for the saddest Straw Hat backstories in One Piece. Of course, everyone connects to these characters differently, so your ranking might be completely different from mine. And honestly, that's what makes these stories so special. One Piece isn't just about adventure or fights. It's about people carrying pain, loss, regret, and dreams, then slowly finding a place where they belong. So let me know which Straw Hat backstory hit you the hardest. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.